Welcome, Ms. Lamb Chop. So, okay, how to lose an empire in 2 weeks. That's how we roll here. It's over. The dog days are over. So, I'm waking up, but give me just a second. So, we need to do the financial markets first, because just to run the numbers real quick, in case you haven't heard this a million times, I've read it so many times in the last couple of days. Persian Gulf is 20% of all the natural gas created into liquid natural gas by chilling it into giant balls on ships that come out through the Straits of Hormuz, which is 20 kilometers wide, which I think is like 12 miles wide, blah, blah, blah. 20% of the oil that comes from Bahrain, Kuwait, they're called the Gulf states. They're the Arabic Muslim city states on the southwestern part of the Gulf. And across the Gulf is this nation that's sort of like Alaska. It's like mountainous. It's about the size of Alaska, and it's 6,000 years old. And it's where algorithms and algebra come from. So let's all strap in, shall we? But in the last 48 hours, the most important thing that happened was this liquid natural gas. I know a lot about this. On your reading list is a book about Aramco. Aramco is the Arab American oil company. And I'd like to tell this story. It's about 800 pages long. It's the story of Saudi Arabian oil. Okay. And it goes like this. At the end of World War II, Stalin, Churchill, and FDR met in Tehran. And on the way home, within the last at the middle of the war, they had hit oil in Saudi Arabia. Somehow they knew there was oil there. Frequently back in the old days, they knew there was oil in places like the La Brea tar pits because it literally bubbles to the surface. Okay. By the way, if you don't know, LA used to be one big oil field. Go look it up. You won't believe it. Like Santa Monica was just one big, hundreds of oil dikes. Bad joke. So Churchill flies through Arabia, meets with the king, and is waiting for him, like sitting on like the Arabic Ottoman couch kind of a thing, and has a cigar and a glass of scotch in his hand, which is a horrible affront to a strict Muslim. And they talk about matters and so forth. But the thing to know is there's crazy, unbelievable. The numbers that came out of the early drilling in Saudi Arabia, there's some bizarre statistic, like in the first 2 weeks of drilling in Saudi Arabia, it was making more oil than all of Texas. It's just crazy. There's a field there called Gawar, Ghawar. The world has been living off of that oil field for almost 80 years. It's the biggest oil field in the world. Saudi Arabia makes 9 million barrels. We now make 12 million barrels because we can frack here. Russia makes about 10 million barrels. So then he leaves. FDR flies in. And FDR is this weird combination of American aristocracy. He's really an Astor. His family made all their money selling opium to the Chinese. The Ivy League got all of its massive wealth early on from the opium trade. Can't tell anybody that. He meets with the king, and he liked to have a drink too and smoke and, do what Americans of the time did. Never touched a drink in front of the king. Writes a handwritten note. I can remember seeing it. It's in the book. He writes this handwritten note to Eleanor. Yeah, I met with the king. We had a great time. I met his slaves and his prize-winning sheep. It was a real hoot. and gets on a fucking plane and flies back to America. And the Saudis and the royal family and his advisors and so forth, and they knew that they were, Allah had given them this infinite wealth under the desert. And they were like, yeah, makes sense because the two holy sites in Islam are there, Mecca and Medina. And they decided to do business with the Americans because the Americans just wanted to make money. They didn't have any problem with that. And they knew that once they got in the British Empire, they'd never get out. Okay, so that's sort of our opening salvo tonight. All of the Gulf states are one missile away from going back to the desert because they all got all their water from a desalination plant. And they know that, and the Iranians know that. And all they have to do is hit that fucking desalination plant, and it's over. Okay. So the opening salvo of the war was these very strategic, instead of the Ayatollah and his people going mad and just they could just massacre American troops wherever they wanted to. Bahrain, there's 10,000 troops. Kuwait, there's 14,000 troops. I think there's still 4,000 troops in Iraq. These are all easy targets for them. Go look at the map. And they didn't. In fact, in the previous 12-day war, they hit a base in Bahrain and called the U.S. Army or Navy or Air Force, whoever runs it, and says, we'll be sending a missile. Make sure everybody's keeping their head down and so I'm not making this up. This time what they did is they just took out the radar with precision. You can go watch the videos. They hit a couple tanks just to make some flames and shit. Threw a lot of stuff at Israel. But I did a couple weeks ago, I did a piece and I called it Parlay. Like, let's just have a chat, shall we? So some of this content I'm taking from this guy who's just magnificent. Anon Mizrahi. And the word Mizrahi means Arabic Jew. And there's black Jews, there's Ethiopian Jews, there's Arabic Jews. Netanyahu tells us this fairy tale that the Arabs pushed the Jew. He's Ashkenazi, he's from Poland, that the Arabs pushed the Jews out of the Holy Land, and that created the diaspora. Now, you might remember from your 5th grade world cultures that the real cause of that was the Bellum Judaicum, whenever the Romans went to war and destroyed the Second Temple. So the whole thing that's been taught to Americans that is just a complete fairy tale of like how this all fits together. Okay, so the original salvos coming out of Iran dismantled the radar in all of the Middle East. For almost 100,000 American troops are just sitting there with almost no defense. The Iranians don't even have to send a troop in. They don't have to send a ship or an amphibious vehicle or anything. They can just hit a button. Now, on the other side of the Gulf, because Palantir, do I have my we need to pull out the Palantir hat. See, we need a producer. Where's Mr. Snurdley when you need him? This war is being run by Palantir. And they admit it. They talk about it. Trump and his goons are not picking these targets. AI is running this. Oh, sorry. AI is running this war. This is a war between the Islamic Republic of Iran and AI. We'll reach for that every once in a while. So the girls' school, there's an argument going on. You can see it online of whether or not Anthropic or the Pentagon decided to blow up the little girls' school. I think 180 little girls were killed. But let's give the devil his due. We have been able to decapitate Iran over and over again because of the AI has completely infiltrated all of their it's backdoored all of their technology. their cameras on the streets, cell phones. They did that thing where they blew up a bunch of people in Lebanon with the cell phones. They can track and find to a remarkable degree. In fact, you can actually contract with NVIDIA and Palantir now and just get your own autonomous killing machine, kill chain. We'll get to that later if you stick around. I did see one IDF officer warn Putin that they will take that technology. It's already in Russia, she said. She said, we will turn on that technology in Russia. Now, Alex Karp, I've spent a lot of time studying Alex Karp because that's how I prepare for these things. Alex Karp explained that the real mission of Palantir is to go to war with Iran, Russia, and China. You can think about that for a little bit. So, I've encouraged people to go watch the movie Carlito's Way because it's almost impossible to tell Alex Karp from this guy, Dave Kleinfeld of Carlito's Way. That's Sean Penn, of course. And actually, they're the same guy. They're a coked up asshole with weird hair, think that they're going to take on the world and win. Go watch the movie with some friends. Now, that story is going to come back to America here at the end of this video, but let's just go through the horror of the missiles back and forth. So then, for the most part, the Gulf states are neutralized. Now, this is where all the petrodollars, if you've never heard the story before, you have to sort of stop and take this in, that 80% of world trade in our lifetime has been done in the dollar. If China buys soybeans from Brazil, they pay for it in the US dollar. The Chinese yuan is pegged to the US dollar. The whole thing runs on the US dollar. But that's not the important part. The important part is when all that oil and gas leaves the Gulf of Mexico, the Persian Gulf, and goes out the Straits of Hormuz, and the dollars fill up in Bahrain and Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Kuwait and so forth. They're sitting on billions and trillions of US dollars. Up until Trump was recently elected, 73 cents of every dollar invested anywhere in the world came to the United States. What? It's almost like hard to take in. 73 cents of every dollar invested in anything in the world came to Wall Street, basically. That just ended. That just ended. Because now Iran is currently and most likely looking forward going to be in control of how those transactions take place and in what currencies they take place. So they announced shortly after they bombed and started to talk to all these Muslim neighbors and said, you guys have gone to the wrong side. You didn't do anything for Gaza. You've sold out to I wouldn't say infidel, but sort of. We've all heard the stories of Dubai. It's like a sex dungeon, like for wealthy people in North America and Europe to get like pretty girls and go there, and like the horror stories, sort of an Epstein Island kind of a thing. And so they've just been bombing the shit out of Dubai. They flew one of those little drones, plywood drones. Boom! Right into the fucking Citigroup Tower in Dubai. Just didn't blow it up and like drop it, just flew 2/3 of the way up. Massive explosion. I don't know. I don't even know if you can use the building anymore. This is what's going on, people. It's not missile to missile. this is why Trump gets in Hegseth and Warfighter gets on. And he's like, we destroyed their Navy. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They never had an Air Force because they've never tried to have an Air Force because they can't get parts for their Air Force. So they decided to make missiles. Everybody's known that for like 30 years. And this is what we've killed. We've decapitated them. There's nobody left. Unbelievable. Like they just go into this Saturday Night Live skit about this war over and over and over again. And the missiles just keep flying. The missiles are just coming out of the mountains. Same thing happened in Vietnam. We like landed Marines and airborne people on these mountains, and there were thousands of people in the mountains that we didn't know about. So the war is not only not over, we may even be in like the first wave. See, like in the 20th century, what would happen is we'd send a battleship up and just obliterate like 2 miles deep, right? And then the Marines come. And then the Air Force comes, right? Like the classic World War II movies kind of a thing. It just doesn't work in Iran. It's just for two reasons. It's too mountainous, and it's just layered with missile silos inside of mountains. Like go look at the map of it. Look at like a geographical map. It's unassailable. There's no way if you landed Marines on the mainland of Iran, they would just be vaporized by missiles within 15 minutes. Which brings us to Karg. Karg is 20 kilometers off the coast of Iran. It's the filling station for like 80-90% of Iranian oil. Almost all of it goes to China. So last Friday, we bombed it. Looked at it very strongly. We destroyed the entire military facility on the island. There is no more military on Karg Island. We'll see what happens. We may send the Marines. And Friday night, this Friday night, there's more Marines going into the Persian Gulf, and nobody really knows what they're going to do. Like, where are they going there? We already have lots of troops in the Persian Gulf area, right? From all these wars for the last 25 years. I like to remind myself that I'm 55, and for 25 years of my 55 years, we've been at war through this thing called the War on Terror. It's the exact same script every fucking time. We have nothing to show for it other than $40 trillion in debt. And here we go again. So it would be easy for Iran to turn the Gulf states into dust bowls. All they'd have to do is there's like 6 desalinization plants and the whole thing's over for the Gulf states. And they know it. Everybody knows it. The Americans know it too. Which leads you to a question, and I'll leave this to you. Like, did they all know the outcome? The military's known this outcome forever. Very good friend of mine's a Naval Academy grad, and I remember 20 years ago drinking beer with him and saying, like, there's no way that you learn in like the military that there's no way to go to war with Iran other than a tactical nuclear weapon and just kill them all. So then, in the last 36 hours, Israel attacks. I think you got to look at the map. It's just such a weird place. Israel attacks Qatar, which is the pudenta that sticks out called Qatar. There it is right there because I've been looking at it recently. Look at this weird thing. Okay. See this weird thing that looks like Florida? I know it's terrible. Someday I'll have a Mr. Snerdley. This thing, half of it's Iranian, where they load the Iranian liquid natural gas and it goes out Australia, South Korea, Japan. There's lots of big civilizations on Earth that have no gas, no petroleum, no natural resources to speak of to create energy. So Israel hit Iranian side. So the Iranians hit the other side. Now let's just think about this for a minute. There's an old anti-Semitic trope from the Middle Ages that Jews go around poisoning wells. Well, they just poisoned the well that makes 20% of the seaborne natural gas. And if Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL would like to have a debate about that, I'm here. The fallout from this, it would be like taking, I don't know, a river that comes out of the mountains, like, I don't know, like the Colorado River, and just poisoning it. Israel just conducted, I think, the biggest act of terrorism in human history. It doesn't mean like a bunch of people are vaporized or you blow up things in the marketplace or something like that. But the net impact of making millions and millions of people not have access to cooking fuel. Did you ever go camping? Did you ever go camping without any sort of petroleum? It's cold. It's real hard to boil your little packet of dehydrated stuff. You can do it. Yeah. But it's a lot easier if you have some sort of gas. It is the biggest act of terrorism in human history. And Netanyahu, either live or an AI last night, got out and said, yeah, we did that without America even knowing about it. Trump tweeted about it. So Trump's response was, Trump was, is like the thing that all fathers experience, like driving their kids around. Mom, he touched me. She started it. I'll finish it. So Trump says, Israel, without our knowledge, bombed the Iranian South Pars field. Iran responded in kind. If Iran responds again on the South Pars field, the biggest field in the world, we will make a massive, huge bomb on top of the field, and there will be no more gas from the Pars field. This is like, it's funny, sort of not. It's so outrageous, so dangerous, and so absurd. I actually don't know the answer for this. I love to hear myself talk and give opinions about things, but I really wonder if this is Trump and Netanyahu. That's the cable TV version. I think it's this. That's the wrong one. I think it's this. I think this is running the whole war. There's a video you can see some guy from the Ukraine, I think somewhere in Gaza or Israel or something. He's just sitting there. Is this big vest on, says press, and you hear, and he looks up and he goes, what the fuck? And starts to run. And they shoot a fucking bomb, a 500-pound gliding bomb, like right over his head. Somehow he survives it. That wasn't the IDF. That wasn't Netanyahu. That wasn't some woman sitting at a computer screen. That was fucking Palantir, which trades on the NASDAQ. Just murdering motherfuckers around the world. I sat here in this chair before Trump took office, and I read this book called The Technological Republic, which they explained they were going to get a bunch of assholes to pretend to be the actual people in charge, like Hegseth and Trump, and what we have like a MMA guy who's taken over something, and Erica Kirk's on the fucking Air Force Academy board, and just this whole like clown show that's on cable TV that people think are running. It's all AI, people. It's AI. Sunday, I'm going to do pretty harsh piece. It's going to be about theocracy and technology. And after this, I'm going to post something I wrote today that's really sort of angry, called American Gothic. You can take a look at that if you want. But then let's do the financial markets a little bit. It's so bad that sort of like I'm goofing on this. The financial markets are the same way. They're like, is this even for real? Like, is Trump just going to pick up the phone and like call somebody and like turn this? Because this is like an Armageddon. This is crazy. This is so the estimates are this will drop global GDP by 5 to 10%. And we have a lingering inflation problem in this country. And there's no way that this doesn't lead to more. When you hear oil and gas, you think like, well, you go to the gas station. No, people. No. When you order your yoga pants, they're made out of petroleum. When you order pharmaceuticals, they're made out of petroleum. When you walk through Walmart, everything's made out of petroleum, including the food. Petrochemicals, or I was just talking to my dad about it at lunch. I think takes a half a ton of nitrogen to grow corn. And I think nitrogen is now almost $700 a ton. So it'll take $350 of nitrogen. In fact, here's what he said. He called the local fertilizer dealer and he said, Jim, why don't you just wait a little bit before you put the order in? And that's of the financial markets, just like the local fertilizer dealer. Nobody knows what to make of this. This is so outrageous. This is so Armageddon. This is nobody can put a pen to paper or a cash flow analysis of fucking anything right now. That's why the dog days are over. So if you look at the stock market, what's interesting to me is I thought one of these Mondays, I thought we were going to wake up to like a big, 5-8% kind of gadoosh, like boom, like that. No, because it's like, well, this is so crazy. Is this like another taco? I forgot what that stands for. Trump always caves in the end or something like that. All the tariff stuff, and then he takes the tariff off. So everybody's waiting for that again. Everybody's waiting for the whole thing to go away. But they don't understand, like, the loading system for the LNG has already been blown up. And every time people want to hear that it's like, they roll out these little things like, well, they're texting each other. And then the Iranians come on and like, they're charging $2 million per ship to go through the straits. All the Chinese vessels, all the Pakistani, all the enemies of the West are doing business with Iran. So now they're talking about taking out the Karg Island. My estimates are that the price of oil here is about $100. In the ocean, outside the Straits of Hormuz, the Gulf of Oman, it's called the Indian Ocean, price of oil on the ocean is about $160 a barrel. That's sort of my theme for you. The financial markets don't even know what to do. They don't know whether you get the joke. And the effect that you're getting in the stock market is primarily this, which is actually a very bearish thing. In other words, if it's up, oh my God, the Straits of Hormuz are going to be closed and the thing drops 15%, it shows that the markets sort of know how to react. The fact that they're just like, what the fuck? And it's just going like this. And like we commonly use the term rolling over. It's very, very, very difficult to make a argument for any financial asset right now. What do you mean financial asset? Financial asset is anything that you purchase just for the cash flow or a potential of appreciation, that there's not some real asset behind it. There's a very wealthy guy, like right up the road, bought all the coal mines in like the early 80s for literally 3 cents on the dollar. The coal industry was over. Nobody wanted that shit anymore. The steel mills went down. The coking coal was that. He just went and bought all these closed. He's worth $500 million now. He just said, coal's not going away. And here we are 40 some years later. This may be a something that we've all talked about in finance for a long time, is where we wake up one day and there's really no reason to own anything that doesn't have some sort of finite hard asset behind it. Korea has 10 days of natural gas left. There'll be no hot food in Korea in 10 days. Australia has 14 days of diesel fuel left. These numbers are so absurd. Your brain goes, that can't be right. Somebody will do something about that. No. So, one more time. Alex Karp. That's the guy running the war right there. It's a perfect metaphor or analogy. I always get those mixed up for what's going on. He's a lawyer, wannabe gangster. Carlito is a reformed gangster, and they go through this thing, and they're sort of friends, and they're hanging out together. And the big scene at the end after they they basically bomb Iran. And Al Pacino says, Dave, you're not a lawyer anymore. You're a gangster. And that's what America is now. America is a fucking nation of gangsters. And the whole world knows it because of the Epstein files. The gangsterism that runs the United States of America, to include an FBI document that says Trump is compromised by Israel and his handler is Jared Kushner. There's an FBI document that says that. And if you stay here till about 9 o'clock, I'll tell you what we're going to do about it, or what we could do about it, or what we should do about it. But this is real bad. I mean, not only is Australia going to run out of diesel fuel, we're being run by gangsters. I mean, if you really understand the Nazi Party, they were gangsters. If you really understand the Bolsheviks who took over Russia, they were gangsters. This guy, sorry, the real Alex Karp, I studied philosophy at Yale. I have another hat for that too. Alex Karp studied with the Frankfurt School. And Habermas just passed away, which is interesting. And it turns out that Alex Karp was actually too radical for the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School, I've not hurt anybody's feelings, which is a bunch of Jews sitting around saying, how can we take over the West, specifically America, with cultural Marxism? How do we destroy their culture so that we can take over their... I'm not making this up. Go Wikipedia. This isn't anti-Semitism or whatever. This is philosophy. This is where this guy was trained. Peter Thiel, Mr. Antichrist himself, I've just recently learned, is also a philosopher. And I'm going to get a little dweeby with you here for a minute. He believes that the world is run not on any sort of common human experience, right? Like, oh, you shouldn't bomb little girls going to school. Like 99% of the population of the earth doesn't really think that's a proper thing to do to much of anybody, right? Except the gangsters who run America. In other words, I'll get to that in a minute. This was done by AI. Alex Karp argues just let the AI do what it needs to do. Needs to kill some random journalism, drop a 500-pound bomb on his head? Let it happen. Palantir and NVIDIA have this new software system you can buy and just target whoever you need to target anywhere in the world. Just let the AI create the kill chain. You can go watch MSNBC all fucking night, and it isn't even close to how bad this. They think this is all being run by this 80-year-old New York asshole that we knew from the 80s was an asshole who hung out with 14-year-old girls. This is way worse, and nobody who speaks English has any fucking idea what we're going to do about it as the diesel fuel goes to $10 a gallon. Not the conservatives, not Elizabeth Warren. She's very concerned. Bernie Sanders wants you to send him $27. I think he's in on it too. Tucker is talking about the demon that visited him late at night and is afraid to be arrested by the CIA. He's fake. Candace Owens still wants you to be mesmerized by Macron's husband's dick. They're all fake. So you just babble about all this shit. Meanwhile, there's an AI system conducting a war against the civilization that's 6,000 years old. Okay. Now, sometimes whenever I prepare for these things, I wonder if, I'm going to have enough content to make people interested. And then I know about this, but conveniently, this came up on Zero Hedge. Just real quick, if you don't mind, I'll go through the headlines. I think we won. Unbelievable. The war ended as soon as it started. I think we won. That's the top headline. Gold suffers worst week in 43 years. That makes no fucking sense. People are just selling everything. If you ask yourself, well, how could that be that gold would go down right now? People are so scared that they're literally just, in other words, the people who are in gold speculatively short term are selling they just want to get to cash no matter what. Okay, it's going to be fast. The next thing I'm going to talk about is this. This, of all the things you talk about, the missiles going back and forth, I meant to go into it. Saudi Arabia, which is the third largest oil producer, they've been hit by a couple of missiles. Just, to start the conversation. The oil, 9 million barrels a day, enters the ocean at 2 points, one in the Red Sea where the Houthis are and the other in the Persian Gulf. They've just dropped a few things over here just to get their attention. And there's a pipeline in between. Then all the oil, 9 million barrels a day, has to enter the ocean, enter a tanker in either of those things. They're both in range of either the Houthis or the Iranians or both. The Iranians can turn off Saudi Arabia's oil in an hour. In a fucking hour. I joked with my dad. I said, Dad, all these old order Mennonites, like the Amish, some old order Mennonites drive around in horses and carts. I said, maybe you could give them a call and we could get a couple ponies here and a couple of those little black wagons. Okay, no one wants to talk about this. It sounds geeky. This is the most important thing going on right now. Is this company is trying to lock down while they're blowing up the Middle East. Whose idea was it? Trump? Is it Alex Karp? Is it Netanyahu? Is it Satan? Is it AI? Whatever. It's happening. And it's escalating hour by hour. In this country, this is what's happening. The Trump America AI Act. U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn has released the 291-page legislative framework that would repeal Section 230 and expand liability across the artificial intelligence ecosystem and establish a united federal rulebook governing how AI systems are built, deployed, and controlled in the United States. The act is being presented as a pro-innovation, pro-safety measure designed to protect children, creators, conservatives, and communities while ensuring U.S. dominance in the global AI race. But the actual structure of the bill reveals a comprehensive system that centralizes regulatory authority, expands legal exposure for platforms, and creates new mechanisms for controlling AI outputs and digital information flows. For independent journalists and publishers operating on platforms like Substack, the repeal of Section 230 shifts the risk upstream. Platforms would no longer be shielded from liability tied to user-generated content. So the wonderful Friday night experience that you're having right now with me, talking about these matters and a couple edgy things, just like TikTok, they will take control of that and police it with Palantir. Palantir is the technological republic. Palantir is taking over the entire fucking country. I've told you for 5 years, you're going to wake up one day and there's going to be like a confederacy. Only the confederacy isn't going to be in Richmond and a couple down south. The confederacy is going to take over Washington, D.C. And then it's going to take over, it'll just overwhelm all the state legislatures. There'll be no free speech in America. Well, hold on, it gets worse. Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL this week said, like Israel, we should start to roll out technologies to fight anti-Semitism, like the Israelis used against Hezbollah. In other words, if I'm on here saying some shit about Israel just blew up the South Pars, my phone will just explode in my fucking face. Section 230 protects online platforms like Substack from being treated as the publisher of user-generated content, shielding them from the most civil liability over what users post. I lost 83,000 followers on TikTok shortly after October 7th because I said, well, the Israeli lobby has a lot of influence over social media. And it took down the whole fucking account in the middle of a live for saying that. 4 days later, Jonathan Greenblatt said, the ADL has an office in every social media, Facebook, Google, all of them. We live in a kind of theocracy. If you want to hear about that, I'll be here live on Sunday, noon Eastern. Explain we have a kind of upside down, inverted theocracy of evil. There's no fucking Bill of Rights anymore, people. There's no more Bill of Rights. The first line of the first article of the Bill of Rights says, Congress shall establish no religion. That's what's happened. We live in a theocracy. You don't hear anybody on cable TV say that. You don't hear anybody anywhere on social media say that. This is on Zero Hedge if you want to go read it. It's called the Trump America AI Act. It's the end of the Constitution. That means that companies like Substack are no longer simply hosting content. They are legally exposed to it. For example, I read a Substack piece that was clearly 60% jest and 40% content called Jews Gone Wild. Now, that's just funny. That's just, if it was called Blacks Gone Wild, nobody would give a shit. But we're a theocracy now. There's someone that you need to keep in your catalog of Americans at this time in life, particularly if you're speaking to white men over my age, like in their 60s and 70s, and his name is Paul Craig Roberts. Paul Craig Roberts won the Cold War. Paul Craig Roberts wrote the supply side. It wasn't Arthur Laffer and his fucking curve. It's Paul Craig Roberts who wrote the philosophy behind the real Reagan revolution, which he articulates like this. And he said Reagan wasn't that complex of a guy, but he was an actor and he was Irish and gregarious and just had a native sense of like what to do. You know, like I think he saved 4 people from drowning or something like that. And the plan was in the 70s, things were very dangerous because the price of oil was high, which brings a lot of revenue to Russia, which is back then the Soviet Union. And inflation was very high in this country. Our productivity was getting poor. And there was a real sense that like our way of life was going to go down because of it. So Paul Craig Roberts wrote up this proposal. He has a PhD in economics from Georgia Tech. A real like Southern gentleman that I love the Georgia accent. I don't like all the Southern accents, but the Georgia one is to me very soothing to listen to. And it was his idea to radically lower taxes, to allow the cash flow of the economy to roll back into the productive part of the economy, corporations, businesses, and so forth, and stop going to Washington, D.C., to create a supply of cash flow to go create the things that we need to lower the prices and break the back of inflation, while at the same time allowing, who's the big guy? The Federal Reserve Chairman, Paul something, I can't think of his name. He's like 6'4" or whatever. He ran interest rates to 18%. And that's ultimately what broke the back of the inflation. It put us into a deep, deep recession in 81. And then we started to roll out of it in 82. And then from that, we started this massive military spending, which ultimately led 5 or 6 years later with this emphasis on Star Wars. The Soviets looked at that and said, we don't have the resources to compete with that. There was no such thing as Star Wars. It was Reagan's great. It was the Gipper doing Gipper stuff. I mean, there's some concepts of it and lasers and Star Wars looking shit, but there was no real Star Wars. Okay. They were just going to zap missiles, from space. And if you remember, Reagan met Gorbachev in Finland, and they were having like this détente thing. And at the final part of it, Gorbachev said to Reagan, well, what about Star Wars? Can we take that off the table? And Reagan said, no, I can't do that to the American people. And that's how he won the Cold War. So the guy that did all that was Paul Craig Roberts. And he just wrote a piece, and I'm going to talk more about this on Sunday, about the fact that in 1982, I sound like I'm contradicting myself because I'm either for or against Reagan. That's not what we do here. That's for cable TV. 1982, the Education Act was passed, which identified 7 Noahide laws from the Talmud as the basis of Western civilization. A direct affront to the First Amendment. It's completely unconstitutional. It didn't even say we respect the religion of Judaism. It's 4,000 years old and the stuff like that. No. It said that the Noahide laws were the basis. I think it even went on to say the basis for the American Revolution. It's the beginning of the establishment of a religion. And that's why, Linda, that's why the censorship, because the next line in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights says Congress won't establish a religion and shall not, forgive me for not having it at the tip of my tongue. It says religion and then speech, and that's what's happening. Larry Ellison took over TikTok. I'm not on it anymore. I don't even know what I said. I was doing a live and I lost 125,000 followers for the same reason. His son is taking over CBS, Paramount, Warner Brothers. I don't know the exact name. There's a complete rollout of all American media is being brought under this control and the control of AI in the middle of a war being run by AI. Now I have 6 minutes left and I'm going to tell you what we could possibly do about it. We need a musical interlude? The woman who takes care of my mom, and mom has dementia, but sometimes I think she's faking. I flew home from San Diego and I had a cold and I got in late and there was like a snowstorm and it was fucking terrible. And I think it was not that morning, but the morning after, she walked up to me, she said, is there something wrong? And I said, well, I have a cold and I flew in late. She's like, no, there's something really wrong. You look like you're really upset about something. And I said, it's this fucking war. And she said, really, is it really that bad? And I said, yeah, it's actually much worse than anybody on television is telling you. And then she told me, she said, well, I haven't watched your recent stuff. And I said, well, I'm not on TikTok anymore. And she said, no, I watch you on Substack. And I was like, really? I don't know if I want you to watch me on Substack. It's not good to be if you want to be a prophet, you have to go into another town. You can't do it at home. So I have a plan. It's the how to eat an elephant plan. And it's piece by piece. So I sent an email to somebody in the Democratic Party here in Pennsylvania. Most of my life I've been a Republican. I used to be a white person, but I got over that. I'm not really like a Democrat. I voted for Jill Stein. Pretty good thinking, wasn't it? Jill Stein said the first thing she would do if she entered the, I knew she was going to win. It's more on principle. First thing she was going to do as president of the United States is call Netanyahu and tell him to get fucked. You can go look it up. The 10 things I would do on the first day in office. The number one thing Jill Stein, she's obviously Jewish, would be to tell Netanyahu, we're done with you. And the price of oil in the Gulf of Oman right now would not be $165. But instead, we voted for a guy who rapes children and said we would never go to war with Iran again because we're run by gangsters. So let's start there. We have the Epstein files. It's a complete window into a world of not just sex trafficking. Everybody knows that Trump fucked some 14-year-olds. Like, we've known that since the 80s, right? But what comes out of it is some sort of not just trafficking, sex dungeon kind of thing, but some sort of ritualistic culture of cannibalism, child sacrifice, the most heinous things you can think about. And here in Pennsylvania, we went through this 15 years ago with Penn State and Sandusky and Joe Paterno, and they made a movie out of it. Al Pacino plays Joe Paterno, does a great job at it. I'm telling you, you were in a bar and people would bring this up and you were this close, depending on which side you were, from being on a fist fight over this, because the heinousness of pedophilia it overwhelms you. And this is what makes it such a perfect thing to take over a civilization, because no one will talk about it. And when they do encounter it, they're so terrified by it. They want it. Like, you don't go home and tell your wife, I saw Sandusky like with an 11-year-old in the shower. Like, you would think that there's something wrong with your husband if he did that. I mean, it was like 2 years that nobody would talk. You didn't talk about it. It was like a thing that you didn't bring up at Thanksgiving, because there was the Paterno side, and then there was the pro Paterno side and the anti Paterno side. By the way, I went to football camp for 2 years there, and it was run by, wait for it, Sandusky. He was a brilliant defensive coordinator. So I sent an email to some local DNC people and say, hey, I'd like to learn more about Governor Josh Shapiro and his possible running for the presidency of the United States. He's written a book, and he went on 60 Minutes, and I don't know, you can go watch it yourself. He seemed very disturbed because he had to talk about the fact that the Kamala Harris campaign asked him in the interview leading up to whether or not he was going to be the VP candidate, whether or not he had any contact with Mossad. And you can see in his face in 60 Minutes. Now, he could be fake too, like, right? They're all fake. We believed Trump wasn't going to start a war with Iran, and here we are. But you can go watch it himself. He seems like really sort of rattled deep inside, like that's, by the way, Kamala Harris is married to a very pro-Israeli Jew. I think his last name's Emhoff. Really, we should have talked about the fact that her real name is Kamala Emhoff. But let's all calm down. And he was an attorney general and a prosecuting attorney, and he made a settlement with the Catholic Church over pedophilia and the pharmaceutical industry. And I'm going to do a little bit more of my Bruno research, and then I'm going to make some sort of, to the best of my ability, some sort of little statement that goes like this. Governor Shapiro should lead other governors using state law and the RICO statutes to go after what we commonly call the Epstein files and everybody attached to them. This is how what we're living through becomes like an inverted civil war, where there's not like 6 or 8 states that say we're going to go do our own thing. We have this kind of technological. The video just got choppy there. I wonder if. Hi, Alex. Hi Hi, make sure you get this on the algorithm. If we're going to do this at all, there's nothing coming from the FBI. The FBI is completely compromised. You saw the video, right? I think Tim Dillon did a skit about it. Well, Attorney General Bondi, are you going to go after these people? No, what we should be talking about is the stock market's at 50,000. Washington, D.C. is gone, people. There's nothing you can do about it. The Democrats are very concerned. They always cave. I mean, right now they want $200 billion to prosecute this war. AIPAC will be so far up their ass. It's like literally look how this is breaking up. This is what used to happen to me on TikTok. I could tell as soon as it got edgy, the thing was, look at my hands. I don't have 6 fingers, by the way. RICO statutes, state by state. Just eat the elephant piece by piece. For example, in Ohio, nothing has been done about Wexner. Nothing. The state, because it's terrified. This guy has so much underground Gestapo-like power. Wexner's just a Jewish mobster. It's that simple. Don't anybody get worked up about it. There's mobsters. Get over it. Some of them, you can go watch The Departed, are Irish. Some of them are Russian. Some of them are Italian. Some of them are Jewish. And people are terrified of them. And they control the FBI. The FBI through the 50s were like, there's no Italian mob in America, right? It's because what's his name? J. Edgar Hoover was paid off, right? There's no drugs in America. The FBI denied that. Why do we even have an FBI if the things that they're supposed to prosecute they cover up for? That's the problem of democracy. It's going to have to be state by state. Doesn't matter if it's blue or red. These Congress people are so gerrymandered in. You can't vote them out. If you do, AIPAC just unloads on you. It's state by state, people. It's RICO statutes. And I think we'd all be surprised to find if you just weaseled your way into the local county Republican or Democratic office and just was like, yeah, I'd like to become more involved. And just sort of move your way up through the system and be like, right now they're going through this ranch in New Mexico. It's a hellscape of bodies and bones and conspiracies and baby breeding. It's not even a Stanley Kubrick movie at this point. I used to say that for 5 years. It's much worse than a Stanley Kubrick movie. The only way to do this is state by state, using the RICO statutes. It's not, we're going to win a couple more seats and, maybe get a couple of votes to impeach Trump. He'll be gone anyways by then. I think this is something that's going to go on for the next generation. This war is going to cause an economic catastrophe globally. Catastrophe. It doesn't matter what the fucking stock market does. If you don't get diesel fuel, you don't plant your fields. If you don't get diesel fuel, the ambulance doesn't come to pick you up. If you don't get diesel fuel, the snowplows don't run. That's not everything in life isn't a financial tool. I listen to Bloomberg, and for a couple of minutes, they're like, what is diesel fuel for? Because everybody that runs Wall Street lives in Connecticut. There's nothing in Connecticut, right? There's just assholes that run Wall Street. There's no factories. There's no farms. There's no coal mines. There's nothing real. It's just this digital gobbledygook bullshit world that runs America. I'd say it's 50-50 that this AI bill will pass. I've been doing my homework on what do we all went from TikTok to Patreon because of the Ukraine war. Me, Scott Ritter, Colonel McGregor, everybody that had something edgy to say about October 7th and the Ukraine war, where are we going to go? Because we couldn't, you'd start doing a live like this and get turned off. Look how glitchy it is. Look, that's the algorithm. Where are we going to go if they take control of Substack? And I'll be honest, Substack is loaded with not even like academic, intellectual comments about Judaism, but like outright anti-Semitism, because people can't fucking take it anymore. They just blew up 20% of the world's liquid natural gas. I know this is geeky and you don't want to hear it, and it's like, what? Ethereum? What are you talking about? Well, when China pays for the oil and gas coming out of the Straits of Hormuz, they use a blockchain protocol developed by Russia that runs on Ethereum. Who's been telling you for 5 years that we're going to have the Great Reset? Might be war that does it, and everything's going to run on Ethereum and things like it. XRP, Solana. The payments for what is going in and out of the Straits of Hormuz is running on Ethereum. Yeah, I've been saying that for 5 years. I've been pretty consistent on that. And I know it's sort of boring. Like, what? What do you mean Ethereum? Like, what are they going to use that for? I thought it was just NFTs and shit. Okay, there's that. The financial system, whether it's planned or it's Mrs. Rothschild or it's Alex Karp getting stoned or whatever it is, the Great Reset is the global economy as we've known it is over in the way that we've known it. That the U.S. Navy keeps the sea lanes open, everybody trades with each other. We have to muscle some people now and then, you know what I mean? But, if the bananas get too expensive, we have to have a little sit down. But that's gone. That just ended in the last 2 weeks. The idea that the dollar is controlled by a guy who gets on Bloomberg and CNBC and goes, look, well, we're data dependent. We're looking, the inflation came in at 2.9, a little higher. We were looking at it at 2.7, but that's over, people. There's no more inflation fucking around 2.9, 2.7, blah, blah, blah. The oil in the Indian fucking Ocean is $170 a barrel. And it's basically going to the highest bidder, which means at any time it could trade for $220 a barrel. There is no oil market anymore. There's no central oil thing where all the numbers fit anymore. The natural resources have disengaged from the financial markets. And nobody knows what anything's valued at anymore. And Ethereum and things look how glitchy this is. Ethereum and things like it were built just for this. So this is called, it was originally Bruno Crypto, and then I changed it to Bruno Blockchain, and then it came to Substack, and now it's the Bruno Podcast. This war is an AI war. This war is a technology war. That includes the missiles, Palantir, the Islamic Republican, 31 provinces acting independently. I'll work on that on Sunday. But you're going to have to start to think differently about what you're going to do in America. There's not like blue and red and like boys versus the girls and shit. Like all that is fake now. It's all run by this Epstein Red Mafia thing. You can see into it. The media, the social media, the ADL, Facebook, Google, Wexner, the Rothschilds. I've for many years on here, whenever I was like, nobody knows who runs the world. It's probably Mrs. Rothschild. And then Mrs. Rothschild, there's actually two of them, is all through the Epstein files. Epstein said to Wexner, I work for Mrs. Rothschild. That's a meme on here. I used to jump, let me see if I could find it real quick. I used to put this on TikTok all the time. Let's see if it comes up. I don't know. I need a Mr. Snardley. We are in a a situation where I used to be called, my sub thing on TikTok was money markets and metaphysics. And believe it or not, all this, when I started doing Bruno, I would always whip out these two things from the Bible. In your catechism or your Sunday school, you learn that Christ was tempted in the desert by Satan, and he gave him an image of all the cities of the world, sort of a new world order kind of thing. People love that. Then I would whip out, because I remember this in catechism, the only time that Christ got angry was arguing about money outside the temple, the money changer, famously the money changers. Our democracy is not very well suited to deal with the conspiracy of trillionaires. Judah Benjamin, the Secretary of State of the Confederacy, was very closely aligned and connected to the Rothschilds. Judah Benjamin negotiated with the British and the French to prepare to overwhelm the Union after the war started and break up the United States of America. Ulysses S. Grant, the day of Appomattox, was ready to invade Mexico to drive out the French army. What? What the fuck are you? What do you mean the French are? I'm not making this up. There was 100,000 British troops in Canada. The Civil War was a global war. You just don't know that because we won. The Russian Navy was in San Francisco and Baltimore Harbor because the Tsar said any European power that attacks America is an assault on the nation or the kingdom of the Russian Empire. The Russian Navy, because we didn't have much of a navy at the time, and of course the British did. We are in a replay, an upside down, inside out replay of the Civil War. We sit around and we talk about the power of trillionaires and billionaires and oligarchs who, through conspiracy, have taken control of our political system. That's exactly what caused the Civil War. This is where we are again. So that time we had some guy with a beard and from Illinois, like become president and take over the Union Army, and the rest is history. Well, this time they got Washington, D.C. For 5 years, I've said on here, you're going to wake up one day and it's going to be like Gone with the Wind, only the South didn't lose, the country lost. And that's where you are. You're going to see $7, $8, $9 diesel fuel. It's going to feel like the end of a war because it is the end of a war. It's the end of a 25-year-old bullshit war started on false pretenses on 9/11 because there's a guy that with a long beard, 6'5", on dialysis in a cave in fucking Afghanistan. By the way, the general that was sent to go hunt him down grew up in this house. I think that's maybe. Yeah. They're sending the Marines. They're talking about sending them to Karg Island. They're looking at it very strongly. They're going to send them to Karg Island where all the oil goes. Iran will have no oil going in it. Fucking price of oil will go to $250 and those Marines will be vaporized. This isn't like doom scrolling ain't going to do it anymore, people. You've got to do shit now. You've got to do shit. You can't just sit around and go, oh, it's not like COVID. I'm just going to hunker down and watch Netflix. It doesn't matter what your political inclinations are. If you want taxes to go up and abortion and lesbians and all the global warming and all the other fucking bullshit that you hear on cable TV. They're going to lock down this fucking AI onto American civilization and they're going to start fucking killing people. Just like they did in Minnesota. It's weird that I'm the only fucking guy on the internet that talks about it. It's weird. Not Nick Fuentes. Not Tucker Carlson. Weird. Tomorrow, tomorrow at noon, we're going to do some business related stuff. There's no reason to own financial assets. Any financial asset anywhere in the world is, you can't make, I mean, Microsoft will be okay. I mean, Exxon will, of course, thrive. But just big bundles of, we have no idea what the economy looks like at $150 oil. It could actually be a lot like COVID. It could actually, there could be like lockdowns, the control of how long you're allowed to drive, your travel. They want to lock down the country into a technological republic. It was written by Alex Karp. I'll see you tomorrow at noon.